everybody. Welcome to the Quintessential Queens podcast right here on IntellectualRadio.com. We are an iHeart radio station. Thank you for joining me this Sunday on the Quintessential Queens podcast. We are what in the midst of Easter's coming up, right? That's what's coming up. Spring is here, dare I say it, and don't get mad at me if it snows or something tomorrow just because I said that. But the weather's warming up, flowers are blooming. I see buddings all up and down, wherever I'm walking, where people have their flowers and their bushes planted. So spring, that means what? That, it's a time for us to renew our minds and start having these wonderful ideas. Take the time to let your mind bloom along with these flowers. Take the time to learn some new skill and to think about the path we're going to be taking as a person, like as an individual, that's one, and then as a people and as a community. Like, where are we headed and what are we going to do? Thank you again for joining me here on Quintessential Queens, where queens come to be celebrated, elevated, and sometimes vindicated, but always educated. You will always learn something here on this podcast, as well as IntellectualRadio.com. IntellectualRadio.com has something for everyone, and I mean everyone, even the opposing viewpoints and perspectives. There's a show here for you all, too. Those of you who don't agree with things that I'm saying, there's a show here for you too. And that's what's wonderful about intellectualradio.com. There's something here for everybody. Right now, here on the Quintessential Queens podcast, I would like to update you on some things that I was speaking about last show. Last show, I talked a lot about the immigration process that's going on, or more the gathering up people and disappearing them process that's going on. And I have an update on a couple of those things. So they had two brothers, and I'm sure you all have seen this in the news, and if you have not, then I will update you on some of the things that have been going on there. So there was a brother who he sought some asylum here because he needed a kidney transplant. And any of you in the medical field who are familiar with transplants, as I am in the medical field and I am familiar with transplants, you do know that siblings are usually the best match for, a donor. If someone needs a transplant, the donor is the best match is usually a sibling. Other than, we have these sites where you can go on and donate your organs to people if they need it. They have that too. But I'm talking about, the original things that we look at. And the first things that we looked at are siblings. We look at that family member that's a compatible match. So there were two brothers. There was Jose Pacheco and then Jose Gonzalez Gregorio. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but the brother who came here solely to donate his kidney to his brother, Jose Pacheco, who needed the transplant, they rounded that brother up and put him in prison. So it's the donor they rounded up, not the brother who was ill and needed the kidney, but the donor. Rounded him up, locked him up. He was in prison. I believe he went to jail March 3rd. So the Resurrection Project, which is based here in Chicago, the Resurrection Project got to work on that to help these brothers, and they were able to get him released. He was released, granted a stay of removal, is what they call it, because he had a removal order. Why, I don't know. But he was granted a stay of removal so that he could help his brother. This is a life-threatening situation for his sibling. And they granted him he was allowed to come here legally to do so. So I don't know how the roundup started, but that's the question I've been asking anyway since I started just rounding up people and disappearing them. They locked him up in the jail here in the United States in Indiana. But April 4th, he reunited with his brother, and they're going to allow him to stay to donate that kidney to his brother. So both of them have the name Jose, and they have some different last name. So Jose Pacheco is he needs to be the recipient, and Jose Gonzalez, his brother, is the donor. So he's out. So we have a happy ending there, right? You have a better ending for this story. If you remember on one of my last shows, I said, they round you up, put you in jail, and forget about you. Once you go to prison, yeah, they kind of just forget about you. Even if you've been locked up for something you didn't do, a crime you didn't commit, they still make you just sit there, right? Until an organization comes through to fight for you. And so this is what happened for these two siblings. The Resurrection Project came through. They gathered up like 1,700, over 1,700, let me correct myself, over 1,700 signatures so that they can get this sibling out to save his brother's life. But, the ICE don't care about that, right? They don't care that he was here to help his brother live. That, they locked him up. I don't know what they were planning on doing with him, but in the meantime, were they going to let his brother die? So thank goodness for certain organizations that come to the aid of people that may not have any other way to speak up for themselves. Some of these organizations get in here and they help that. So that's something that we have a better outcome and a better ending. The Resurrection Project got their partners and people that they collaborate with to help get this brother out of prison. And so he's out, and hopefully their surgery goes well. Hopefully the transplant goes well for his surgery. So that's one with a better ending. Now we have one where ICE rounded up a man, and he was here legally from all of the research that I've done. He has a spouse that's here in America, a spouse. So they rounded him up in the Walmart. This is the details. Rounded him up in a Walmart in front of his son, young son, who happens to have autism. So they cuffed him, and unfortunately for him, they disappeared him. He disappeared. Where is he? He's in an El Salvadorian prison. The prison where they're taking all of the ICE ICE is rounding up these immigrants, Venezuelan immigrants, and that's where they're shipping them off to. They're not even shipping them back to their country of origin. They're shipping them off to this very, very well known prison in El Salvador, and is not known for being humanitarian or for being so wonderful. So he's there, and here's the here's the odd part about this. The Trump's administration has already said that there was some sort of clerical error. They didn't say where the error was, but they're admitting that there was a mistake made. But guess what else that they're admitting? That they ain't going back to get him to bring him back here. So he's been rounded up, put in prison, just forgotten about. Oh, well, yeah, we made a mistake, but oh, well. That's what it sounds like to me. Oh, well, yeah, it was an error, but you're there. You're going to stay there. And his administration and the leader over immigration right now is they're very fine with letting you know that this is where they're going to put these people, and that it's a lifetime sentence. This is what they've been saying very boldly, have no problem with saying it. And no due process is what a lot of people in America that want appropriate immigration, that's what they've been saying, like that they deserve due process. Then you have people that say, well, due process is for citizens. The immigration policy and law allows for due process. So for those of you who are so hell bent on ship them up, round them up, and ship them out, they do have some rights once they hit this land, because that's what America is about. You have rights now. You get a certain amount of freedoms, but illegal immigration is a different thing. So a lot of people feel like you have no rights. Well, you could say that, but when there are states, when they come here, they get plenty of rights. They get rights to go to school. They get right to health care. They get plenty of rights. So you have all these loopholes going on. But the person I'm talking about, he was here legally. He has a spouse here. He has a son here. He has a family here. Why he was rounded up, I don't know. But he's in that prison, and the Supreme Court said for them to bring him back because there was an error. they should bring him back. Trump's administration said they have no plans to do that. This is what we're living under here. So it's like even with law and policy and rules, it's like it don't matter. You know what that's going to spell, right? Anarchy. We're going to have anarchy on our hands if the top government officials decide that they don't want to follow the rules that were made by them and the American people. Oh, yeah, we ain't got to follow that because I'm the president and I do what the hell I want to do. That's pretty much the message we're getting. That's the message American citizens are getting. So this young male, he's over there in that prison, and what they've been told to do is give an update, a daily update on how he's doing, because the family was like, how do they even know that he's still alive? How do we even know that he's doing well? This is what, this is a big concern because for me, as I've said before, it reminds me of what goes on every day right here with our young men or with our men, with black men, African American men, round them up, throw them in prison, and forget about them. And tons of our young men have been put in jail and incarcerated for crimes they did not commit. And just you're just there forgotten about doing time, going through appeal after appeal, but you're still sitting in prison losing time until an organization steps up and fights your case for you. So this is what we're going through now, and we're going through it in it's like mass hysteria. So this young man's name is Abrego Kilmar Garcia. I want to mention his name so that people know we haven't forgotten about him. We haven't forgotten about you, and we hope they bring you home because this is where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be home. No one should be rounded up, put in prison to sit there just because an elected official feels that's something he's supposed to do. We can't allow this to continue to go on. We can't allow this to constantly happen. It's already been happening to us. By us, I mean black people. It's already been happening to us right here. And we've come long ways to fight that, right? With even longer ways to go. But we've come a long way to fight locking up our sons, locking up our brothers, locking up our uncles and our fathers and pillars in our family, pillars, the pillars in our family, the pillars in our community. And I'm talking about black men, African American males. This is not something we want to see repeated. I don't want to see it repeated with any race. I don't want to see any race of people or gender of people being locked up for nothing just because people say it's okay to do. So I remember I was talking to some of my male friends about this, and one of my male friends said he recalls, and I recall as well, when the parents and grandparents used to say, don't hang out in certain places and don't hang out with certain people because when the police come and they round you up, you're going to be in jail just because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the wrong time. You got rounded up, put in jail, and who knows when we'd see you again. So that really wasn't that long ago. That was some decades ago, not long ago. But we've since a lot of us have gotten knowledge about our rights. A lot of organizations have come forward to assist with our rights. And there's been police reform and there's been legal reform, right? It seems like we're rolling backwards with that. We don't want that to happen. Do we want to start seeing, again, our people locked up for nothing? Then you got to spend money to get them out. And who has money? People are putting up their properties, their businesses to get their loved ones out of jail. So if this young man, Abrego Kilmar Garcia, if this was your son, how would you be feeling right now? Not only is he not here, not only is he incarcerated, but he's in another country and in a prison that it's well known. This is a rough place to be. And they're proud of that title. That prison is proud of that title because they say, oh, it's the worst of the worst up in here. It's awful people up in here. So they don't mind treating them bad. They don't mind not being humanitarian to them. But this is always the problem with a prison system that believes in like torture and being inhumane. I'm not saying that prison does because I don't know. But the problem is when you are locking up people who don't belong in there. How many people is that locked up in there that don't belong in there? We know for a fact it was very true with young Black American men and uh, young Hispanic men. They were being locked up in prisons here and they didn't belong there. They were, again, incarcerated for crimes they did not commit. And it was rough on the inside if you listen to them when they get out and tell their stories. So lucky for us, lucky for them, a lot of them were released, right? They were released. They were able to go home. Now, getting your name clear, that was something altogether different. Even though they let them out, did they have their names clear? That's a whole other horse to ride on another conversation. Sometimes people are released, but they still have that criminal record. But if you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't have the criminal record. So now you got to pay all this money to get the record expunged or even just to get it off your name. Think about how when people go around lying on you, how upset we get. Now you have attached this lie to me. Now I got to go around going off on everybody to let them know this is not the truth. So imagine legally you have this tag on your back that you were a prisoner for robbery, burglary, murder, whatever, but you didn't commit the crime. They let you out, but you didn't commit the crime. You still have that you're a felon on your record when you didn't do anything to become a felon. So many things that need to be corrected. So we've done well with releasing some people, but we haven't done well with clearing up their record. And by we, I mean America, clearing up their records. If I didn't commit a crime and I was put in jail for a crime I did not commit, when you let me out, you need to take that crap off my name because I didn't do it. That's something we need to be looking into. But I digress. I came to that area because who wants to be put in prison when they're not supposed to be there? Who? Who wants that? And nobody wants that for their relative. Nobody wants that for their son. So I hope they bring this young man home. And I hope we all start to pay a little more attention right here at home because this stuff is going on American soil. It's going on the soil that we live in. And right now, he's rounding up Venezuelans. That's who he's targeting. But Trump also rounded up a lot of Africans about a month or so ago and sent them home too. But you didn't hear about that. That didn't get the news radio play or the broadcast airwaves. You didn't hear about that. I read about it in the paper and then I did some research on it, looking and finding. And so, these were some supposed immigrants that they rounded up, and I don't know where they put them. I was not able to find that out. Like, where exactly did they go? Did he send them back to their country of origin, or did he send them to some other prison? These are the things that totalitarians commit. Dictators do stuff like that. If you say something wrong, they round you up and boom, don't nobody know where you at. Now you disappeared. Or just if we don't like your race, because that's what, I'm talking to people in the Hispanic population and they feel like it's an attack on the Hispanic population. So their Cinco de Mayo parade that we have here, it was canceled for that reason. They were worried about that, ICE was just going to come and start rounding up people and sending them away. So that lets you know the fact that they feel it's an attack, it's the truth. It's the truth. It's evidence based because a celebration that they have every year has been canceled. That's over with. It's gone because of the worry of disappearing people. So what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about our rights that are being snatched away? Our rights are being taken away too. There were several hundred African American students who had scholarships revoked. So how are they supposed to complete school and how are they supposed to go back to school? The scholarships were revoked because they were diversity, equity, and inclusion related. So this government that we're living under now is saying that that's racist. That the fact that they got these scholarships based on being someone in an underserved community, that was racist and they're revoking the scholarship. So now you know what that means, right? That's a lot of African American students who can't complete college. A lot of African American students who can't finish school. We're rolling time backwards here. Things are not going in a direction that's helpful for any community, especially ours. It took us a long time to even get that, where people could look at the fact that you wanted an education, but maybe you couldn't afford it. So there were scholarships and donors who would put forth money so that you could go to school. And then whatever criteria the college came up with, if you fit that criteria and you wrote the essay and they selected you, you got that scholarship, you could finish school. Now, this current administration that we're under, the federal government that we're under, they don't want to see that happen. That's going away. And the premise behind it is, oh, you should bring in the person who has the best qualification, regardless of race or culture or ethnicity. For real? Is that what it's about? That's exactly why DEI was put in place. People only heard about DEI because they added gender into it in like the 90s, I believe, right? DEI has been around way longer than that, decades longer than that. All of us have always said, if you are the best candidate for the job, you should get the job. But the reason we had these things in place, you had DEI policies, you had, equal opportunity policies, you had, what was this last thing they stripped away? You had affirmative action policies. For what reason? Because they were not hiring the person who qualified best, who fit the criteria if they were black. Those people didn't get the job. And why didn't they get the job? Oh, you didn't have the education. No, they had the education. Oh, well, you didn't have the degree we wanted. Yes, they had the degree you asked for. They had the skill, they had the experience. But what was different? They were black, so they didn't get the job. They didn't get selected in the school because they were black. So you can't say, "Oh, just bring in the person who can do the job the best." The whole reason we had affirmative action, DEI, equal opportunity, because people were not hiring the person who could do the job best. People were not selecting the person with the qualifications because of the color of their skin or their ethnicity. This is why these things were put in place. But now you have a president who's sitting in the Oval Office reversing that and changing the premise to say that a lot of white people, a lot of Caucasian people were looked over because they picked a person of color to do the job. That is so awful way to twist the facts, right? That's twisting facts. These things would never be in place if this country had a reputation or behavior suggesting that we pick people based on their criteria and not their race. I don't have to go down the list of history with you to talk about the racism here against blacks. And yes, they're definitely against other ethnicities and nationalities, but I'm speaking about my people right now, and that's African Americans. It's plenty of history to show we're more than, I can't even see that it's just prejudice. It's true racism. You can't live a certain place because you're black. People aren't going to select you for certain jobs because you're black. You're going to get thrown in prison 2 or 3 times more than any other ethnicity. Why? Because you're black. And then the time you get, let's say you are someone who's guilty and you did something wrong, you're going to get 2 or 3 times more time than a Caucasian person who committed the same crime. And that's evidence based. Go look it up. And I mean, really look it up. Look it up in your law libraries. There are judges who have done interviews who said the same thing. That's an unfortunate truth. That's an unfortunate truth. Our men and women get more time than their Caucasian counterparts who've committed the same crime. And it's the same thing down the line with hiring and selections for schools. So, ridding the country of DEI is what? You're just going to roll back and increase the racism. The little bit of progress we've made is going to go to pot to seed. Apostasy gone to seed is what I like to call it. Now what are we going to do? because it's happening. It's not a, oh, it's gonna happen. It's happening. So um I was talking to some of my relatives about this, and they said it's scary, and it is scary. It's very scary. It's more than worrisome. But what I'm telling everyone, and I want to repeat this every chance I get, don't be scared. Be prepared. Get ready. Figure out what you're going to do when things aren't going the way they're supposed to go. Figure out how you're going to protect your family, how you're going to continue to sustain and feed your family. These are the things that we need to be putting in activation, not just thinking about. We've had the time to think about it. Now is the time for action. We got to get up and start doing something. I'm saying it all the time. All evil men need to succeed is for good men to sit by and do nothing. We can't just sit by and do nothing. We have to start now. You don't want to wait till they're grabbing your brother and locking him up in prison. You don't want to wait till that happens. You don't want to wait until they're grabbing your father and shipping him off to some country that he's not from. Then you want to do something. Think about it now. Start doing something now because it's not getting any better. I keep watching to see, okay, is something's going to change? Are we going to have some people in those political offices fighting for us? Locally, aldermen seem to be doing some things about it. And like I said before, the Supreme Court had already said they put out an order to say, bring this guy home, but the administration said they're not going to. So that's a problem. That's a problem. We are a country of a system of checks and balances. That seems to be no more. It seems to be very dictatorish, very totalitarian. We're supposed to be a democracy. So if you have the Supreme Court, and they are the Supreme Court for a reason, right? They're saying, okay, an error was made. We need to bring this guy back. We need to bring him back home. He has a wife here. He has a child here. The administration has already admitted they made some sort of error where he was concerned, but they never said what the error was. Bring him back, and we could look through it while he's here instead of while he's sitting in prison. But Trump's administration said they're not doing that. That they're not doing that because he's the president, and no one can tell the president what to do. That's that's not how it works, right? That's not what democracy is. That's what a dictatorship is. So is this country falling into the realms of dictatorship? Are we falling into the realms of totalitarianism and, dare I say it, fascism? Is that where we're headed? That's not what this country is for. That's Plenty of people fled their countries for those very reasons. Plenty of people came here because they wanted to get away from dictators, totalitarianists, and fascism. Nobody wants to be a part of that. This is the country that's democracy. We're not a part of that. I don't know what we're going to call what's happening right now. What are we calling it? It really is a time for action, and it is scary. And yet I say it again, don't be scared, be prepared. Start figuring out and putting into action what you're going to do. How can we keep our neighborhoods safe? How can we keep our children safe? But how can we keep the community safe? But it starts at home, right? How do we keep our families safe? We all want our families to be safe, right? We want our friends' family to be safe. We want to continue to enjoy the lives that we have been enjoying up until about right now, right? Up until about right now, stuff is like, oh, it's getting a little bit too much. But if you've been in our community, and I mean the African American community, we've faced these issues many, many, many times for many, many, many decades, right? We have. This that's occurring now is on such a larger level that everybody really does need to bond together. You need to grab hands, and forming you need to start forming your togetherness, so that we can work to help each other. Part of what's going on in this administration is they're pulling a lot of funding from programs that need the funding, right? A lot of funding has been pulled from the Department of Education. So, what does that mean? That trickles on down to your children's elementary schools, your children's high schools, your children's colleges, your education if you're someone in school, if you're a student. That trickles on down to that. So that means that services are going to be cut. Any of you parents that children need Title One, and any of you who aren't in the educational system, you know that Title One is funding to help children that they may be disabled or they may have a different way of learning. They pull those funds to give those children the additional time they may need to learn something. So, that's a teacher that's taking additional time to teach them. That's additional time in the school. That is a needed service. Those things are going to start to be affected. Free lunch. So, let me tell you, growing up, I remember talking to children that they only ate when they came to school. They only ate when they came to school. And I remember talking to some of those children as adults. They were hungry. They were hungry at home. They were very poor at home. Some of them are living in homes without electricity. Some of them were living in places without water. Granted, I'm talking about something many decades ago, but surprisingly enough, unfortunately enough, those things are still occurring. There are still children living in a home. They may not have running water or electricity or food. So if we cut the free lunch program, one, now people are going to have to pay money to eat in school. You got to pay money. What about the people who don't have the money to pay for their kids to eat lunch in school? We shouldn't have hungry people in this country, especially not hungry children. And then for those children who only ate when they came to school, they only ate breakfast at school, they only had a meal at lunch because when they go home, there is no food there. That breaks my heart. That breaks my heart because now we have an administration that's saying they don't care about that. We don't care if them kids eat. We don't care if them poor black kids eat. We don't care if them poor Hispanic kids eat because the large majority of those children affected were from African American communities and Hispanic communities. And you did have a percentage of those children from Caucasian communities. A lot of people were affected with this, a lot. So the pulling money from the Department of Education means you're getting rid of those things. There's such a bigger humanitarian picture here. And I am imploring all humanitarians, and that's any person who cares about humans, any person who cares about children, any person who cares about humans. Let your mind start blooming to what we need to do to ensure that our people are safe. And part of being safe is providing very basic needs, which is food. What can we do to make sure everybody's eating? Because when these services start being cut, I shudder to think what's going to happen. Funding has already been pulled. Funding has been pulled from educational services. Funding has been pulled from medical services. What are we going to do to replace those services? There's a huge amount of people out there that don't care what we do because they agree with what's going on. They don't think we should be feeding poor people. Okay, so what we supposed to do with them? Where they're supposed we just supposed to let them roam around in the street? We got enough of that. We got enough of homeless people roaming in the street. We got enough hungry people roaming in the street. That was another issue that we were supposed to be trying to deal with, right? Deal with the number of homeless because the homeless people, whatever you might have in your mind about folks that are homeless, if you know about facts, a lot of those people were folks that were in wars. They were veterans, right? With m- mental illnesses, some of them, but that's not all of them. Some homeless people were families where the breadwinner lost their job, and now the spouse and the children, they're homeless. They're living out of their cars or they're living in shelters, and there's not enough shelters to go around. It's just not. So there are people that are fine with that, but there are people like me, we're not fine with that. We want to make sure that children aren't hungry. That just doesn't make any sense in this country. Why should anybody be hungry? Why should you? We have food pantries, we have organizations that give out food, but funding is being cut. So those things are going to be cut. Those things are going to be few and far between. So it's going to be up to us to make sure the people in our community eat and are safe. Food is just one of the things, but it is definitely one of the more basic needs that we have to address. And it's one of the more basic needs that have been a problem in this country. And with funding being pulled, it's going to increase. You're going to have an influx of homeless people and children, hungry people and children. So we need to do our part. One, to make sure that we sustain ourselves, our family, and our community. And then when there is an area or a call of action for folks who are hungry, what we can do about it. We want to be able to do something about that. We don't want the numbers to increase. It's already too many homeless people, hungry children out here. It's just too many. It's really just too many. So it's up to us to do everything we can. Those of us who are caring, we're doing okay with shelter. We're doing okay with food. We need to band together to make sure that everyone else is doing okay with shelter and doing okay with food. And wherever we can lend a hand, we need to be doing that because our rights are being stripped away, services that we need are being stripped away, and it's happening. And they're not even done yet. So you already see the results of some of these things. All of it will be coming down soon, and I don't know who's gonna rein in these policies that, our federal administration has, since they don't feel they have to listen to anybody. They feel like they are the alpha and the omega, the end all and be all, but we already know who that is, right? God is the alpha and the omega. People need to fall in line and realize these things can't go on forever. But people also need to fall in line and realize that there's something you should be doing. There's something you can do. Figure out what it is and get on top of it so that our communities are sustained, our communities are safe, and that people can continue to live a life of freedom, happiness, and fortune that we should have. We definitely need to stand up and start to do that. We can't just sit by and do nothing, y'all. Too many things are going on a downward spiral, right? All right. I think I've stood on my soapbox long enough. I think I've talked long enough. Remember, this is Speaking with D. I am Speaking with D on Instagram. I am Speaking with D on Facebook. I am Speaking with D on TikTok, however long that's going to be around, because that's up in the air again, too. Who going to buy it if we going to have it? But you can reach me at Speaking with D. If you want to sit next to me and maybe give me your opinion, hit me up in my inbox and maybe I can have you as a guest on my show. If you have a talent or an organization that you might want to share with us, hit me up in my inbox and I can have you sitting next to me. This would be great for us to continue to get to know each other and continue to learn what wonderful assets are out here in our community. So let me say it one more time. Thank you for joining me on the Quintessential Queens podcast today, right here on IntellectualRadio.com. We are an iHeart radio station. Wanda B, take me out. I am ready to go home.